Welcome to Brutal Relationship is about exploring the raw, unfiltered truths of modern life and relationships without judgment. We're here to look at what people are actually experiencing, not what we think they should be experiencing. She's 38, sitting in a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at her calendar that's packed with meetings for the next 3 months. The promotion she fought for came through, the salary is comfortable, her apartment is exactly what she designed it to be. But when she opens Instagram and sees another friend announcing a pregnancy, something twists in her chest that no amount of professional success can untangle. This is happening to millions of women right now, and the conversation we're having about it is changing faster than anyone expected. Think about this for a second. For the first time in human history, women have had the freedom to choose their path without social pressure forcing them into motherhood or marriage by their early 20s. That freedom is precious and hard-won. But here's what most people miss. Having options doesn't automatically mean we know which option will make us happy 10 years down the road. And that gap between choice and satisfaction is where we're seeing something unprecedented unfold. Let me show you what's actually happening. A 2024 study from the Pew Research Center found that among women aged 35 to 44 without children, 38% report experiencing moderate to severe regret about delaying or forgoing motherhood. That's up from 24% just 5 years ago. But here's where it gets interesting. When you dig into the data, these aren't women who chose careers over family because they hated kids. Most of them were waiting for the right time that never quite arrived. Sarah's story captures this perfectly. She's a marketing director in Austin, and when I spoke with her last month, she described her 20s and early 30s as a series of logical decisions that made complete sense at the time. Graduate school couldn't wait. That first real job required proving herself. The relationship she was in wasn't quite stable enough. Her career hit a growth phase she couldn't step away from. Then suddenly, she was 36, single, and her doctor was having a very different conversation with her about fertility than she expected. Here's the thing. Nobody sat Sarah down at 25 and explained that fertility isn't a gradual slope. It's more like a staircase where you're fine, and then suddenly you're not fine. She knew intellectually that fertility declined with age. What she didn't grasp was how sharply it drops after 35. Or how expensive and emotionally exhausting fertility treatments can be. But let's pause here because this isn't actually a story about biology. Not really. What we're witnessing is a collision between two incomplete narratives. The first narrative told women that they could have it all, career, family, personal fulfillment, just not necessarily at the same time, and that the timing would work itself out. The Yeka narrative, often pushed in response to the first, says that women who prioritize careers are selfish or deluded, and that they'll inevitably regret it. Both of these narratives are doing incredible damage because they're both missing the actual complexity of what women are navigating. Let me show you how this actually works in practice. When you're 28 and someone asks if you want kids, someday feels like a perfectly reasonable answer. Your life is still taking shape. Maybe you're dating someone, but you're not sure they're the one. Maybe you're focused on paying off student loans or building skills in your field. The biological timeline feels abstract, something that happens to other people, not to you. Then you hit 33, and someday starts feeling less comfortable, but you're not in panic mode yet. Here's what most people miss. This is the critical window where women often think they still have plenty of time, but they're actually entering the years where their choices become significantly more constrained. If they're single, the dating pool is different than it was at 28. If they're partnered, there's pressure to figure out if this relationship is the one, because you can't afford to spend 3 more years in something that won't work out. At 37, someday becomes a source of anxiety that wakes you up at 3 a.m. This is when the regret starts crystallizing. And it's not always regret about the choices themselves, it's regret about not understanding the stakes of those choices when they were being made. Now, I need you to really hear this next part because it's where the conversation usually goes off the rails. When women express regret about delaying motherhood, They're not saying their careers were worthless or that feminism lied to them. They're saying they wish they had been given the full picture of what they were trading off. They're saying they wish someone had told them that you can't actually freeze time while you figure everything else out. Here's where it gets really interesting. The women reporting the highest levels of regret aren't the ones who made definitive choices. They're the ones who kept waiting for clarity that never came. They're the ones who thought, I'll decide next year when I have more information, not realizing that delaying the decision was itself a decision with consequences. Jennifer, a 41-year-old attorney I interviewed, put it this way: I wasn't choosing career over family. I was choosing not yet over and over again until not yet became probably never. And nobody told me that's what I was doing. So what do you do with this information? Whether you're 25 or 35 or 45, the answer isn't to panic or to make impulsive decisions, but it is to get brutally honest with yourself about what you actually want, not what sounds good in theory. Start by separating your authentic desires from borrowed expectations. Do you want kids because you genuinely want to raise children, or because everyone around you is doing it? Do you not want kids because you really don't, or because right now feels like the wrong time and you're confusing not now with not ever? These are different questions, and the answers matter. Let that sink in for a moment. The second thing you need to understand is what psychologists call the planning fallacy, our tendency to underestimate how long things will take and overestimate how much control we have over timing. You might think you'll meet the right person within a year, be engaged within another year, married 6 months after that, and pregnant within the first year of marriage. That's a 3-year plan that feels reasonable. But here's what actually happens. Finding the right person might take 3 years on its own. Or you meet someone quickly, but they're not ready for kids yet. Or you have trouble conceiving, and it takes another 2 years. Suddenly your 3-year plan is a 7-year plan. And if you started at 30, you're now 37 and dealing with a completely different medical and emotional landscape than you anticipated. But here's where it gets complicated. Some of the women I've spoken with aren't primarily dealing with baby regret, they're dealing with relationship regret. They spent their 20s and early 30s dating people who were fun or exciting or good enough for now, but not someone they'd actually want to build a life with. By the time they were ready to get serious about finding a life partner, the dating dynamics had shifted in ways they didn't expect. This is something we need to talk about openly. The dating market at 35 is structurally different than at 25. Men in their 30s and 40s who want families often date younger women. That's not a moral judgment. It's a demographic reality that affects women's options. The women who report the most regret often describe a double bind. They waited to focus on career and personal development, but when they were ready to prioritize family, they found that their relationship prospects had narrowed significantly. Think about this. A woman who's 36 and wants children is usually looking for a partner who's ready to commit and start a family relatively quickly, but she's competing for those men with women in their late 20s and early 30s who have more time to take things slow. The math just gets harder. Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Your choices about career and family aren't just about you and your preferences. They're embedded in a context of biology, demographics, and other people's choices that you don't control. You can be the most accomplished, interesting, attractive 38-year-old woman in the world, and still find that your options for partnership and motherhood are more limited than they were a decade ago. That's not fair, but it is real. So what do you do if you're younger and trying to avoid this regret? First, get specific about what you want. Not, I probably want kids someday. Really sit with whether parenthood is essential to your vision of a fulfilled life. If the answer is yes, or even probably yes, then you need to factor that into your decisions now, even if it feels premature. This might mean being more intentional about relationships in your late 20s and early 30s. It might mean not staying in a relationship with someone who's not sure about kids if you are sure. It might mean making career choices that preserve your flexibility rather than maximizing your short-term advancement. Let me show you what I mean. Claire is 31 and just turned down a promotion that would have required relocating to another city and working 60-hour weeks for the next 3 years. 5 years ago, she would have taken it without hesitation. But she's done the math now. She wants kids, probably 2 of them. She's in a relationship that's heading toward marriage. If she takes this promotion, she's basically deciding not to start trying for a baby until she's 34 or 35, and that feels like a gamble she's not willing to take. Is she sacrificing her career? Maybe. Or maybe she's making a trade-off with her eyes open, which is actually the opposite of what many of the regretful women I've spoken with did. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. We've created a culture where it's celebrated to lean into your career, but it's somehow unsophisticated to say, I'm making career choices based on the fact that I want to be a mother. We've made the biology of reproduction feel like an embarrassing constraint that empowered women should be above caring about. That needs to change. Making informed choices about the trade-offs between career and family isn't anti-feminist. It's the entire point of having choices in the first place. Now, let's talk about what's different for women who are already in their mid to late 30s and feeling that regret. Because here's what most advice gets wrong. It either tells you to just accept your choices and find meaning elsewhere, or it pushes you toward expensive fertility treatments without dealing with the emotional complexity. The women I've spoken with who've navigated this most successfully have done something that sounds simple but is actually profound. They've grieved what they're not going to have, not glossed over it, not minimized it, but actually sat with the sadness of a life path that's closing off. Because here's the thing, you can't truly move forward until you've acknowledged what you're moving forward from. Some of these women have pursued fertility treatments and succeeded. Some have pursued them and failed. Some have decided that single motherhood or adoption or fostering are paths they want to explore. And some have decided to build a life without children that's still deeply meaningful and connected, often by investing heavily in relationships with nieces, nephews, friends' children, or mentorship roles. There's no one right answer. But there is a wrong approach, pretending you don't feel the regret or letting it calcify into bitterness. Let me show you something crucial. The data on life satisfaction tells us that women without children can be just as happy as women with children, but only if the childlessness is truly chosen rather than circumstantial. When women feel like they were robbed of the choice by timing or circumstances or lack of information, that's when satisfaction drops significantly. So the psychological work if you're in this position is to reclaim your agency. Even if you didn't make the choices you wish you'd made, you still get to choose how you respond now. You still get to decide what makes your life meaningful. You still get to build something that matters. Here's what's changing everything. More women are starting to talk about this openly instead of suffering in silence. The conversation is shifting from, you can have it all at any time, to here are the real trade-offs, and you deserve to know about them so you can make genuine choices. Younger women are seeing these conversations and making different decisions as a result. The regret these older women are experiencing isn't wasted if it helps the next generation navigate these choices with better information. That's not a consolation prize. That's actually meaningful change happening in real time. Think about this for a second. We're living through a massive social experiment where, for the first time, large numbers of women have delayed or forgone motherhood. We're only now seeing what that looks like decades later. Some women are thriving and have no regrets. Some are struggling with profound loss. Most are somewhere in between, building lives that are different from what they imagined but still worthwhile. The lesson isn't that women should rush into motherhood before they're ready. The lesson is that we need much better frameworks for thinking about these choices when we're making them. We need to stop pretending that you can optimize every variable and instead get honest about the fact that adult life is a series of trade-offs, and some of those trade-offs have biological timelines attached. So whether you're 25 and this feels distant, or 35 and feeling the pressure, or 45 and processing regret, here's what matters. Make your choices consciously. Don't sleepwalk into a future you didn't actually want by avoiding decisions that felt hard in the moment. Don't let other people's expectations, whether that's parents pushing for grandkids or a culture that says career should come first, Override your own authentic desires. And if you're already living with regret, be gentle with yourself. You made the best choices you could with the information you had. Now you get to make different choices with the information you have now. That's not failure. That's being human. The women who are sharing their stories about this regret aren't being weak or anti-feminist. They're being honest. And that honesty is creating space for better conversations, better decisions, and hopefully fewer women feeling ambushed by a reality they didn't see coming. That's not changing everything, but it's changing something important. And sometimes that's enough.